Hey everybody, welcome into the back room. I'm Andy Ostroy. We have filmmakers Jyllian Gunther and Stephanie Schwam with us today. We'll chat with them in just a moment, but first, thanks for tuning in. We appreciate you listening, and we'd love to hear your comments. So email us at backroomandy@gmail.com and or post on our social media, and we'll read some feedback next time. And if you like the podcast, please rate and review and follow or subscribe, and you'll be notified every time we post a new episode. So let me first tell you a little bit about Stephanie Schwam. Her expertise in nonfiction storytelling runs the gamut from meaty, one-off news-based documentaries to emotional cinema verite to straight-up formatted reality TV. Her shows have been nominated for multiple GLAAD, Critics' Choice, and Emmy Awards. Jyllian Gunther is an Emmy Award-winning filmmaker working across film, television, and audio. Her work explores love, loss, and memory, with a keen interest in stories of young people building their futures and older people making sense of their past. She is known for drawing comedic, heartfelt characters with distinct voices. And I'm thrilled to have both Jyllian and Stephanie with us today to discuss their new HBO documentary, Bang My Box, the Robin Byrd Story, which they co-wrote, co-directed, and co-produced, which just premiered at the Tribeca Film Festival, and which debuted this week on HBO and HBO Max. Jyllian, Stephanie, welcome into the back room.
Thanks
for having us.
So nice to have you here, and congrats on the film. It's called Bang My Box, the Robin Byrd Story, and we're going to talk about that today. So for people who only vaguely remember or never heard of Robin Byrd, she's now 71. Tell us what she's known for and what made you look at her life and say, hey, this is a documentary.
Well, on the surface, I think what she's known for is being a sort of sexy, funny lady that everybody watched for decades on Channel J. If you were a person in New York in the 70s, 80s, or 90s, I think most people don't know about her. I think they think of her as somebody in the black crocheted bikini who, danced around naked with porn stars. So I think on the surface, the great part of it with Robin was that she wasn't well known. So there was a lot to be able to discover and show to people.
How was that fact during the pitching process? Like, I'm always fascinated with how films get funded. I did a documentary with HBO, and I found that whole process very trippy. You go in, you pitch, and hopefully a few months later, they greenlight you and you get funded. How did it work with your film and HBO? Did they fund the film? Did they take it after it was already independently produced? And the fact that a lot of people, or most people, as you say, didn't know who Robin Byrd was that a factor in the decision-making at all, at least initially?
I think we were very lucky to share an agent with Pretty Matches Production, which is Sarah Jessica Parker's company, headed by Allison Benson. Our agent told, we had the idea. We both grew up watching Robin Byrd. We had a meeting with Robin. We knew someone. We sat down with Robin. We interviewed each other. She loved us. We loved her. We said yes. She said yes. And then our agent told Allison Benson. Allison Benson loved the idea. She's, Sarah Jessica is a lover of New York stories, obviously. And that story is very related to Sex and the City. So we had this great fortune of being joined together. She took it to KC Boys and HBO. And we pretty much had this, what never happens fairy tale story of how to make getting to make a documentary. They said yes. And then we were in development. Once we did a proof of concept, we did shooting at Serendipity in New York with Robin and a little in Fire Island. They loved the footage. And then it was a go. So that was like the opposite of every other independent documentary making experience that we've ever had.
Right. Well, it's important, I guess, to, if you can get somebody on board like Sarah Jessica, who can be a champion and be a conduit to the streamers or someone or people who can fund.
I mean, that was really great. Like Sarah Jessica's company really walked us to the front door. And I think then, everybody kind of knew who Robin Byrd was. but that it became a question of, well, what's the story that you want to tell? And for us, we sort of figured it out. We did the research and we started figuring out sort of, okay, she wasn't only this person that you saw on Channel J, that we knew that she was part of safe sex and part of, she was a champion of safe sex during the height of AIDS. We knew that a little bit about her First Amendment story. But, when we went in there deeper and deeper, it became very obvious that we were going to have this great historical look back. But what we didn't know was that we were going to also have these two contemporaneous stories, one being her archiving her footage and looking back on her life, and then also this incredible love story. So those were two things that happened after the fact, once we started digging in.
Yeah, it's interesting, the cultural impact she had, not just as this early pioneer and sex positive public access TV show person, but as a really strong advocate for safe sex at a time where that was really important. And as someone who did watch her a lot, and I'm pretty intimate with her show, because people in the sex industry often have, they're stigmatized as being whatever, pick your word, slutty, this, that, whatever, immoral. She always came off as like clean and good and decent and smart. And there were times I'd literally be like, would I let her babysit my children? And I used to say to myself, yeah, I would, because she seemed rational and logical and responsible and mature. And she just happened to be in the sex industry. So I think that was her special sauce, to me at least.
Yeah, she's often referred to as the Mr. Rogers meets Debbie Does Dallas. And you should absolutely let her babysit your kids. She's
Yeah, I wouldn't do that for a lot of people though. But.
That's right. She is, I think also for us growing up, we saw her, a lady dancing in a crochet bikini, but we're seeing she's it's a talk show. She's actually three-dimensionalizing people in the porn industry, burlesque dancers. She, featuring someone like Annie Sprinkle, who said everyone passed through the show who was doing performance art. They wanted to be on her show. She really was a platform for many people to, and gave voice to people that weren't giving, naturally given voice to on television. And she was very aware of that. She wanted to do that. That was a thing. But she wasn't on purpose a feminist, or she wasn't political on purpose. She was doing that instinctually. It just so happened that as she was doing this, she's really reacting to the times. And she really, she was at odds actually in the 80s with mainstream feminism. And, that feminism, those people were, sort of aligned with the moral majority during that time. And she was ahead of her time. And, by third wave feminism, now people are, embracing their sex positivity. And, she was pre-Cardi B, she, so it's really amazing that she was just following her nose and then, but being active in so many ways, just accidentally, as we say, accidental activist.
Yeah. Another takeaway for me from her and her show was that I always found her just so full of joy.
Yes, that's a word I use all the time with her. And when Jyllian and I first started talking about it and what our experiences were as kids watching the show, I think that the story I've told a million times is, when I snuck porn as a kid, it was scary to me, and it didn't feel joyful. It felt like, oh my gosh, what am I seeing here? And when I saw Robin's show, it was like, oh my God, it's joyful. It's naked bodies. They're dancing around. This isn't scary. This just feels fun, and everybody's naked, and that's interesting to me. And, I had never seen a naked man before. And I think that you're totally right about the joy. And I think that was, if you talk to Robin, that is one of the main things that rules her life. Is their freedom. Naked bodies dancing it should be joyful. Sex should be joyful. So I think that you got exactly what she was serving up and hoping to serve to you.
Yeah, well, that's why I watched it, because if it wasn't that, then it was just some weird, public access pornish show, and it would not have appealed to me. She was the appeal. She was the draw, because it was like, she was very enigmatic. Like, who is this person who just seems like she could be your sister or your friend or, somebody at work, but her work just happens to be something that has long been considered, kind of taboo. But it was her personality that really elevated her. I mean, who else on public access does anybody know? Right?
Well,
I mean,
the other sex people, but you don't. It's not the same. It's Al Goldstein.
Right.
If you. I mean, Lou Maletta did amazing things, but Al Goldstein and Ugly George were the counterparts to Robin Byrd, and those were scary. Sure, he had political, conversations, but yeah, those guys were nut jobs, and it felt like
Ugly George and Al Goldstein would definitely not babysit my kids.
Good to know.
And not joyful. Not joyful.
Not at all joyful. Not at all.
Party of one right this way. Yes.
Yeah. Another thing I am kind of fascinated by is co-directing, because it's not something we typically see. I think we're seeing it more and more. But was there any sort of grand master plan of divvying up responsibilities, for example, like on the journalistic side or the storytelling sides? Or was it just a true symbiotic kind of creative partnership throughout the whole process?
I mean, I like to say it's interesting. I feel like Jillian and I are really lucky, because I think that I would say that 99 out of 100 times, if not 100 out of 100 times, we agree on everything creatively. It's really interesting. But at the same time, we're not always having the same ideas about things. And we were talking about it this morning, and we were feeling like the film that we made, neither one of us would have made alone. It really is an incredible fusion of the two of us. And so, I mean, Jill, please talk more about this, but I think what you're seeing is kind of how we work. We pass things back and forth to each other. We defer to each other. We hear each other out. And I think, it's going to take us a lifetime of working together, because every day on a shoot day is different, and sort of what does that day call for? We respond accordingly, based on our different skill sets. But I would say the thing that you can't sort of teach to people, which is how to cohere creatively, is something we've been really lucky with.
We've been working together for many, many years. I think we did, the first thing we did together was a Made episode, which was an MTV series. And, we ate it there. We thought we were making a documentary, and we were told to make the poor kid look terrible. And because she wasn't getting made, she was already made. So we have an experience. We both done television, we both done film. Stephanie has worked as a showrunner for much of her career, and I've worked as an indie director. And so Stephanie was doing a history show called Who Do You Think You Are for 10 years plus, and she brought me on as a director. So we have this great combination of being able to work and have a love for history, archival work, and verite. Longitudinal verite, character-driven stories. And this film was a perfect combination of both of those interests and skills. So it was the first time we co-directed, and that is something to navigate. I think because of where we come from, Stephanie's very used to planning everything, because she's coming from show running, television, archival history. And I'm very much into, let's see what happens. So there was a great sort of collaboration, and sort of me speeding up, her slowing down, listening to each other, and really using our editor as a throuple.
Totally.
That, especially for this film, we really needed a throuple.
We did. Yeah.
Nude, or were you guys closed in this process?
Always clothed.
Okay, good. I just want to, for the record, just want to make it.
I was going to say so this is exactly our personality, because I was going to say nude like we are right now.
Yeah. Well, we're all naked in some way, right?
That's
all
right.
the time. I know I am.
Yeah.
So Robin was doing sex positive television long before it became mainstream. How much of your film would you say to you is really about one woman, and how much of it is about America's evolving attitudes towards sex, censorship, and free expression?
I would answer that by saying it's about one woman. I mean, I think that this is a personal history, and through that, larger history gets told. But I feel that this is really, really Robin's story. And then everything is sort of secondary to that. And I think, the thing that we talk about is, and I could tell Jyllian, you're going to say the opposite. I would say that, we talk a lot about the fact that phrases like sex positivity, body positivity, queer safe spaces, those are phrases that didn't exist when Robin was doing all of that. And so the language really caught up to Robin, and the ideas caught up to Robin.
Mm-hmm.
What would you say, Jyllian?
I was going to say that there's two other ways that we talked about it. Robin's a Trojan horse for history, and she's and she's a vector for seeing through. So when we started making the film, we mapped out all of the history that happened over the course of her show, all the movements, AIDS, feminism, moral majority, free speech, FCC changes in cable, we had all that. And then we looked at her life in another side, column, and thought about where things were crossing. And in telling the story, we also thought about how to kind of map those two things together, but do it through her voice so it wasn't dry. It's very helpful to have this character who's this joyful, ball of personality to look at these other things through, so it doesn't feel like you're in school. So I would say that it is her story, and she is a conduit to the history that was happening around her.
And you premiered the film just recently at the Tribeca Film Festival in New York. What was it like screening the movie about such a uniquely New York figure in front of a hometown audience?
It was absolutely magical. I mean, I think the thing that, we talk about is this idea that, we were sort of riding in on the goodwill people have for Robin and the nostalgia they have for her. And then it felt so good to be able to deliver them something even more than they expected. Because I think when you get into the fact that we talked about this relationship and this 50-year marriage that nobody knew about, all of these sorts of ideas about who she really was behind the show, that was such a great thing to be able to present to people. But when we walked in that first night with her into the theater, everybody stood and they screamed, and it was just an electric night. I mean, the audiences are so ready to watch and be on her side. And I think that people are so nostalgic for what she represented. Was in a way a simpler time, an analog time, a time when they were younger and maybe life was a little bit simpler. So it's amazing that we really feel like we've tapped into something wonderful.
Yeah, that must have been incredible for her in particular, but also for you as filmmakers. Were there aspects of her story that surprised even you after you began filming, like moments that completely changed your misunderstanding of who she was?
Yeah, I think, I think as straight girls, we had no idea that she was so meaningful to the queer community. We had people coming up to us when we were shooting in Fire Island saying, "Thank you so much for telling this story. Robin Byrd saved my life. She taught me about safe sex. When sex was taboo, I had some sort of sex just from watching her, in my life. And she was doing this before there were words like queer spaces. So that was incredibly surprising and wonderful to know that she had this kind of impact. I think also just thinking about her and feminism too, and what she was doing and the way, I don't think I thought of her as a feminist as a kid. I wasn't thinking a lot about feminism at 10, but I do think it's really interesting to juxtapose her in history, like I was saying before, in terms of her being ahead of her time in that way. She was an onion, I think the other thing in the community, nobody knew she had been married for 50 years.
Yeah, I certainly didn't.
I know, you don't. And she says that. She was the orgy queen, and she referred to her husband as the head gopher on her show because she wanted to be the fantasy for everybody, that anybody, she wanted to be a blank slate. She didn't want to be a married woman. And she has this beautiful, sort of 50-year love story that's really a crux of the film in a lot of ways. So that was a total surprise. And I think it was great to watch it in an audience with people cheering and gasping at things because everyone did have their fantasy of who she was. And she really revealed herself in the film to us. And so that was wonderful to be able to share. And she was so happy to be embraced.
But you see, that revelation, that knowledge of her relationship, her long-term relationship is, again, to me, part of what I loved about her. And when I found out recently about her relationship, I was like, oh, that it just all makes total sense. She was just a normal, quote unquote, normal, just like the rest of us, who just happened to have a show because this was her career and this is what she did for a living, but it wasn't who she was per se.
Andy, she was doing a local community show. She calls herself a trippy hippie. She came out of the free love era. She was, she was following her heart and being a hippie and doing it on a local community, public access, which was on the national stage of New York City,
Yeah. So I want to ask you about this part of her life because I interviewed Matt Wolf about his terrific Pee Wee Herman / Paul Rubens documentary. And one of the fascinating things about that film was this push and pull with Paul. Like he really, he said, yes, I'll do this film. But you see it on screen. He really didn't want to do the film. He didn't want to, get into his personal life and be the onion that we all get to peel the layers away publicly. And because so many people didn't really know about Robin's personal life after she had been so private for all these years, how open was she perhaps at the beginning? Was there any moments where she was resistant and, did any of that exist?
Yeah, I think that the important thing to say here with Robin is that she was really ready to tell her story. A lot of people had come to her over the years. She tells us that a lot of people had wanted to make the film, and for one reason or another, it wasn't right for her. And she will tell you, when she met us, Mercury was in retrograde, and so she was really sort of weary of everything, but we met and the energy was right. She loved that we were women. She loved that we were bird watchers. She went off of our energy. She really functions in that intuitive way. So she was, by the time she said, okay, I'm ready to do this, I think that she was really ready to tell her story. And she was also really happy that we wanted the story from her mouth. We did a lot of interviews with a lot of people, and in the end, we scrapped a lot of them because we realized Robin was there, and it's about her. It's her POV on her journey, and we didn't need to spend a lot of time having other people contextualize that. And she did a really great job of explaining what had happened. Robin isn't a person who looks back, so she was more about just talking about the kind of what happened rather than sort of waxing poetically about what it all meant. That wasn't where she was coming from. That said, there were a couple sticking points with her. The first one was, no one had been inside that apartment for 20 years. So we knew we had to get inside there. I mean, that apartment, for many reasons, I mean, it's this sort of outward manifestation of her brain and all of the tapes. Her babies were all in there, and we really wanted to get in there. And at first, that was a big no. And then she thought about it herself and went away, and then came back, and eventually it was all right. Come on in. You know, you're allowed inside. And then the second part of it was following Shelley. And, you know, because Shelley has dementia, and because, you know, it's important that he's on a schedule, and she is an incredible caretaker of him. And, you know, we wanted to make sure that she knew that we were going to treat him with love and care. Jyllian had just made a film about another artist with dementia. So she came in with a wealth of knowledge about how to treat that as a subject, and also how to approach that as a human. So that was something that was I don't know. And then we got in and proved ourselves to her. And then when we were able to start filming with her and Shelley, we just knew we were going to have an entirely different film.
You know, can I add one thing?
Sure, absolutely.
I was going to say that in the end of the film, she is walking on the beach naked. In real life, she walks on the beach naked all the time. Everyone in Fire Island knows her nude. You might show up to her house and she'll be naked, even if you have a crew. So she's very comfortable being naked. When we said, "Oh, can we film you naked?" She went, "I don't know. I don't know if I want to be naked." But she, within a moment, she said, and said to the camera, I felt uncomfortable. I'm 71. Do I want people to see me fatter, older? She said, "What kind of hypocrite am I? I have to do this. This is what I've been, you know, preaching for all these years." And she embraced it. And so we had that hesitation from her, and then her embracing of it. And it was really meaningful for us as women, as, you know, as women filmmakers, as people, to see somebody acknowledge their vulnerability and their sense of aging, and then embrace it. So that was really, really beautiful. And we knew when we shot that, which was in the first few weeks, that we would have that as the end of the film. And it is.
So, as we were talking before, her show wasn't just, you know, provocative entertainment. It also became a platform for safe sex advocacy during a very important time. And as you hinted before, and what I always thought, you know, when I would see her doing the cellophane and talking about oral sex, I was like, what is that? And then I would think about it and I'd be like, really shouldn't matter, right? Like, you know, I start to imagine, like, would it dull the senses? Probably not, but it would make it a lot safer. And so to me, she saved lives, a lot of lives. Do you think that part of her legacy has been underappreciated?
I love that you talked about that. I think to the gay community, no. I think that the straights, I don't think understood what she did there. But with the gay community, no. I think that that is what gives her icon status. She was there, and she was providing that information when nobody on television was providing it. And gay men of a certain age really understand that. And early on, Jyllian and I set up a hotline, a bird hotline, and we said, call in with your Robin Bird stories. And, you know, we folded them into the film, especially during the section where we unpack what happened during the AIDS crisis. And we were flooded with calls from men of a certain age who talked about the idea that, who literally said, Robin talking about safe sex is the reason why I used condoms. She saved my life. And Robin made me feel less alone. So that was something that became sort of a headline for us. It's like, we've really got to give this a moment in the film for the kids at home who don't know that she was an unbelievable champion of gay men during a time when sex was a death sentence, when men couldn't come out of the closet because of their executive jobs. And that was part of her message. Her message was, you want to be in the closet, be in the closet. If you want to come out, come out. no matter what, I'm here for you and I love you. Just wear a rubber.
Yeah. The juxtapositioning of that with the fact that at the same time, the United States president and his wife were basically saying, fuck AIDS,
Yeah.
And that's why the question of, is that part of her life and career underappreciated? Here you have this woman who didn't really wield much power, but where it mattered, she did. And she wielded a lot of influence. And then you have the United States president, who really has his finger on the purse strings of all kinds of health programs and awareness programs. And for a while, at least, did absolutely nothing.
She says that in the film. She actually says, we were talking about, Reagan never said anything, didn't say the word AIDS until it was too late.
Mm-hmm.
And in that way, that's when, her being a vector. The other thing is, we didn't know that she went to the Supreme Court. We were researching, and it was very complicated. We had to speak to a bunch of lawyers just because it was a local case that went national. Then she joined, and then it went to an appeals court, and it was very complicated. And we really wanted to make sure that what we were saying was accurate. And but to think about your local cable celebrity in a bikini going to the Supreme Court and winning her fight for free speech, which is literally happening again right now.
Right. Censorship is an important theme of the film. And, she did battle efforts to restrict speech and adult content. And so how strong do you think the parallels are to those fights and today's debate over free speech and expression and media regulation, especially in the cancel culture that we currently live in?
Jyllian, go.
Yeah. You go, Steph.
No, you go.
No, you, Andy. You say it, Andy.
I'll take this one.
Yeah.
I mean, I think, the thing that says it all for us was that she was the first piece of press that came out about this film was in New York Magazine, and Jimmy Kimmel was on the cover. And so, because of everything that he's going through right now. So it's the same fight, different decade. And it's bigger and there's more at stake now because we're about to basically hit a point where we're in state-run television. So I think that, Robin's story was just sort of the amuse-bouche to what we're going through right now.
Mm-hmm.
Amuse-bouche.
Yeah, nice. Well done.
Thank you.
In the 70s and 80s, public access TV was like the Wild West of media. In fact, I had a public access show, a political talk show, where Democrats played rough. That was the tagline of our show. And we would interview,
what was it called?
First it was the Asteroid Dean Report with my friend Nathan Dean. And then it was Asteroid Delate Report when Nathan moved out west and my friend Brian took over. It was like Wayne's World for politics.
That's amazing.
And I remember
it again.
Yeah.
Bring it back.
Well, I do my podcast now, so
yeah.
it's actually the modern version and with a wider audience. But
we're on it.
Good. That's it. You are on it. Yes. Duh. Well, you see, what I like to do with my guests is to get it to a point where I feel like I'm sitting either in a bar or a cafe having a drink. So that literally has happened here, where I forgot we're actually on my podcast. Thanks for pointing that out. So today, with streaming and all the options that people have to watch shows and see people, like, could Robin have even emerged in today's crowded environment?
Shit, she probably would have, but I think that she's a fighter, and she would have made her voice important. But it was a different. Obviously, she was singular at the time. Mm-hmm. So, obviously precursor, what she did really was pre-social media. To see, it was like OnlyFans meets YouTube meets Instagram, TikTok. Like, she was, the interactiveness, being able to call in, as you know, from having a show too. Like, that was just so novel. Mm-hmm. And she was a woman in a man's world, showing sex from the female gaze, mm-hmm. doing this in a way that is different. But I was just reading about OnlyFans. It has millions of people on OnlyFans, and people are still making money. I don't know how that works. So I do feel like, I I'm getting an OnlyFans page, and I'm going to ask Robin how to monetize
How to
it.
do it.
Yeah, no,
Well,
but
let me guess. Maybe the first thing on the list would be naked.
right, helpful,
There
but
you go.
that's
I mean,
a dime
I
a
don't know much
dozen.
about. I don't have one. I probably shouldn't have one, but my guess is that's pretty much high on the list of requirements.
It
You
just
know what,
seems,
though?
yeah.
Sorry, go ahead.
I was just going to say, everyone's naked. There's millions of naked people. But I do believe that if Robin was among, 1 in a million, she would be 1 in a million, and she would find her way
Yeah, I
to the
totally
top.
agree. I totally agree.
Yeah.
Because she had that special sauce. She wasn't just a naked woman. I mean, it's almost an insult to her to even remotely for anyone to put her in that bucket because she was so much more than that.
Well, part of what she says too is what, part of when she decided to leave was when the whole aesthetic of porn was changing and the whole aesthetic of porn stars were changing. I mean, she came from an era where you had Annie Sprinkle and you had Candida Royale and you had these women with a real look to them, a real vibe to them, a real sort of individuality. And now it's sort of this, for her, she was reacting to this cookie cutter sameness where all the bodies were the same, the makeup was the same, the hair was the same, the message was the same. And I think the reason why you don't end up on television for 30 years because you're doing, you're sort of taking the temperature of the room and responding to it. It's because you're being who you are and you're being authentic. And that's completely, if Robin is a poster for anything, I think it's authenticity and her being someone who's completely true to herself.
But she also treated all those people like artists, and she looked at them three-dimensionally. And I think she wasn't, she saw burlesque. I think we said this already. It's hard to know if we're saying a million things over and over. But I do think, seeing those people as actual dancers and artists and creators, and really being a boomer product of her time, free speech, nudity wasn't about, monetizing nudity. It was like being yourself. And bearing your soul, not just your boobs.
Yeah, and again, at the risk of me being repetitive, for me, I think she broke through this barrier where people viewed porn as just a bunch of sad, broken people,
Right.
Yes.
who you should feel sorry for. And
Yes.
I remember watching her show, and my favorite part was the end where she sang, the movie's title, "Bang My Box," and like. I've never swung from chandeliers in my life. I lead a pretty sheltered life, but I remember thinking like, that's a party I want to be a part of. Like I wanted to be in that room with that dance going on with those people because they were all so joyous. They were having so much fun, and they didn't look like sad, broken people. It was that breakthrough, being able to join people into her party where they can experience her joy and not see adult entertainers as sex workers, sex entertainers, as people to feel sorry for.
Yeah, that was part of in telling her story. We really wanted to make it make a point of it not being like she had a horrible childhood and therefore she became a sex worker. Like she did that out of the joy. She loved sex. She did it because she loved sex, and she wanted to be an artist, and she, all the things she did it for were not, we didn't want people to, we're always looking for the, why would she do that angle on people that do that work. And that's not why she did it. And we wanted to make that clear in the film. And I think it worked.
Yeah. She produced hundreds of shows and essentially built like a cultural institution on a shoestring budget. Was there stuff about her work ethic and her determination that you guys took away as filmmakers in terms of how to apply it in your own work?
I know what you're going to say. Go say it.
You know what I'm going to say?
Yeah.
Well, I'm going to say that, and she'll be the first one to say this, like, she was a bossy broad. I mean, is that what she thought I was going to say?
No.
Okay. I mean, she's the first person to say, like, she was bossy and she had to get it done. And I mean, she hustled. She was out there, basically she'll say, yeah, I produced my show and then I realized what a producer does. A producer does everything. So she was, she with Shelley's help was basically a one-woman show. She was out, in 42nd Street getting her guests. She, in her car, which she called her Ford clitoris. She was out there getting the guests. She was babysitting to make sure that they didn't get too inebriated before the show, to make sure they could show up on time. She was choosing the lenses. She was choosing the camera. She was getting everything ready at all times. That's why she put her makeup on the show, because she had no time to prep. So I think, in terms of, she really just reminds, we just relate to her, I think, in terms of, if you want to get it done, do it yourself. And you got to hustle, and the hustle never stops.
Yeah.
I was going to say, I thought you were going to say, Steph, in the beginning, and she's doing, in the very early days, when her show that she was subbing for was called Hot Legs, and then she took over and made the Robin Byrd show. And somebody calls in and says, what do you do when you're not doing the show? And she says, well, I'm thinking about the show. And that is basically her in a nutshell. If you're thinking about the show at all times and doing the show at all times, you're going to end up with 600 tapes across 3 storage spaces in your apartment, Yeah.
Well, I think anyone who's watched her show back then understands totally the bossy broad thing. Like, there's no way you watch her show and think that she's just walking in on set and like there's a bunch of men hanging around telling her what to do. Like, you do get a very clear sense that she is controlling every aspect of that show, which is probably why she was, so successful in her genre. So when people go to HBO and HBO Max and stream Bang My Box, what do you want them to walk away with? And what do you hope Robin's legacy will be as a result of this film?
Can we switch the things we said the last time? I just want to say that we want people, she made the show to give people the love that she always wanted. So it would be wonderful if people walked away feeling the joy and the love that she wanted you to feel from the show. And we would love you to feel that, viewers, from watching the film as well. And if you do, then we honored her legacy.
What she said, I think that's exactly right. We want people to feel the same way and have the experience that people watched in the show. We want people to come away feeling motivated to love themselves, to love their loved one, and
love their bodies.
Yeah, all those things. And maybe learn something you didn't know about Robin.
Yeah, well, especially in today's crazy world, like, I think it's really important that people can watch a film and see someone so joyous in what they do and what they've done and be so comfortable with all of that, even if it is in a category of work that is somewhat still taboo in our culture. It's enlightening to look at someone else who just seems so content.
Then it's working.
Yeah. Congratulations on the film. People can head to HBO and HBO Max and stream it at their leisure. It's a terrific film. I appreciate you coming on and talking about it.
Thank you for having us.
Thanks for meeting us at the bar.
Yeah. Shit, I forgot again. We're on a podcast. Oh my God, I got to press buttons and stuff. Take care, guys, and good luck with it.
Bye.
This episode was produced and edited by me, Andy Ostroy. It was co-produced by Maddie Rosenberg and Jen Hammoud for Radio Free Rhinecliff, with additional editing by Maddie Rosenberg, music by Andrew Hollander, and graphic design by Cricket Langell. And with a special thanks to our sponsor, The Epicurean. Again, thanks for listening. Please rate and review wherever you get your podcasts, and subscribe to the Backroom with Andy Ostroy YouTube channel, where you can watch full videos of our interviews. See you next time.